Thank you, guys. Happy to be here. Also, when we're going through all this, if you have any questions or anything, feel free to interrupt. So there's no issues about that. So thanks for coming. Welcome. So I thought today I would talk about residential real estate, go through some market trends, demographics, and talk a little bit about supply and demand. And then talk a little bit about sort of macroeconomics and how it's impacted our market, and we'll go through why all that is relevant. So I moved into New York in 1987, and when I first moved here, obviously I didn't know any buildings, didn't know that many people, so every morning when I used to get dressed in the morning, I'd look out my window and I'd try to figure out the address of every building. Once I got the addresses down, I tried to figure out who owned them. And all this was mostly commercial buildings, which was more my forte. And then I tried to figure out the China title, and so just to learn the city. And one of the things that works for us, I think, is knowledge. And one of the reasons that people come to us is market knowledge. And if we put things in perspective, and we put things in a way that's easy to understand, then I think that does really well for us, and it obviously does very, very well for our clients. So when I went about learning residential real estate, which primarily was, since I moved to New York, I started with the very basics of the business, which we'll go through. Suffice to say that when I moved to New York, I think the only building that I ever went into an elevator for was a commercial building or hotel. In San Francisco, there were almost no buildings that had elevators when I grew up. So the concept of going into an elevator for residential building was just unbelievable when I came here, because obviously there's a multitude of those buildings which make up our livelihood. So I really did start at the very basics. So the first thing I would say is let's try to figure out what is our market. Okay, so I start out with a very simple understanding of how many people live in New York City. Right, so we're 8.3 million people that live in New York City. By the way, some of this stuff I have because Fritz insisted that I try to put all this stuff on paper. So I actually wrote down some of these things. So a lot of the statistics, if I throw them out, I'll give you guys copies of all this stuff. I brought Fritz, and he can distribute them, and to the people out in the visual world too. So we have 8.3 million people that live in New York City, right? And then we have to house them. So how many housing units do we have in New York City? We have 3.1 million housing units. Okay? These basics are unbelievable, because the basic premise, when we get where our market is and what we're doing, the supposition which I'm going to give you ultimately is, the world revolves around supply and demand. My supposition is supply is an irrelevant factor in our marketplace. And I would tell you that's virtually unique to any marketplace, because if we wanted to go out and produce these glasses today, we could go out to China and probably flood the market and offer all glasses for free, drive everybody out of business, and then who knows what we could do with it. But then somebody could come back in if we wanted to produce glasses, bottle caps, anything like that. You virtually 90 days could probably do that. Except with residential real estate here, it takes a better part of 30 months to 5 years to develop a project and bring it online. So you can't just go out and produce it. So when we look at this, the end result is, in my opinion, that supply is an irrelevant factor. We'll go through why. And then it all becomes demand. And then we'll go through what, in my opinion, creates and diminishes demand in our marketplace. And just taking simple premises and building from that, the facts will give our buyers and our sellers comfort, and particularly the buyers, because even in down markets, with a little bit of ammunition here, you can show somebody why a deal is effective, why it's good. And it doesn't take a lot of figures, because they work so well in our favor. Okay? So 8.3 million people live in New York City, okay? And we have 3.1 million housing units in the city. Okay? Those housing units are divided into two types: something you could buy and something you can rent. Okay? The rental group is 2.1 million housing units. And the things to buy are 2 million, or I should say, and the things to buy are 1.1 million. Okay?
Are you talking about the city, 5 boroughs?
All 5 boroughs. 8.3 million people, 3.1 million housing units, 2 million things to rent, 1.1 million things to buy. That's everything that's available. The 2 million things to buy, to rent, you can divide them up if you want. There's roughly 980,000 rent stabilized. There's about 240,000 rent controlled, 250,000 Mitchell-Lama, about 600,000 free market, somewhere in there, but we'll put those off on the side. So New York City has 1/3 things to buy, 2/3 to rent. Now the rest of the United States has 2/3 of things to buy and 1/3 of things to, 1/3 of things to rent and 2/3 things to buy, just the opposite of New York. San Francisco is an exception. San Francisco, like New York, has 2/3 of its housing market in the rental form and 1/3 in the for purchase form. Okay? So going in immediately, you tell, right away we know we are a unique market. Numerically, we're a unique market because unlike the rest of the country, 1/3 of our housing stock is for sale as opposed to 2/3 from everybody else. So right now, that's a unique thing, okay? The other unique quality about the stuff, of all the things to buy, okay, 92% of every single person that buys that housing unit uses that housing unit for themselves, okay? So conversely, 8% buy for investment purposes. I'll get there one sec. So 8% for investment purposes. And contrast that to Miami South Beach. 65% of everything sold in Miami South Beach is for an investment purpose, so people go out and rent them out in order to cover their mortgage, cover their maintenance, etc. Okay? Las Vegas, 62% investment market. San Diego, California, 35%. Okay? So we're already and this is a very unique thing, that 92% of the people use it, even if it's a pied à terre. They use it for their own use, which means when there is a downturn, you have stability because the people are living there. Now, we'll go through why downturns could occur and what could happen in the marketplace, but going in, you've got a very stable market, unlike South Beach, okay, where when the market goes down, nobody rents, so everybody sells at once, and you flood the market, and you have just this sucking sound of loss, right? We don't have that here, and that is another thing. Okay, these are all things to say why a buyer should feel comfortable paying in a very bad market, and conversely paying in an up market, which we are today, right? Because you watch the market slip away from you in good times, and in bad times you're too afraid to make a move, and then everybody goes, oh, I wish I did, I wish I could, whatever. Sorry, you had.
How did that statistic change with the flood of foreign buyers in the market?
Still the same, 92% still. And the flood of foreign buyers, in my opinion, fallacy, okay, which we'll go through. I'll give you a statistic. 15% of the marketplace maybe is foreign buyers, okay? Significant, but we're a domestic marketplace. And we're attractive locally, obviously, nationally, and internationally. All agree. But the bulk of all our buyers are local. Now, headlines, sometimes you get like at 15 CPW, get an $88 million apartment there, so, and by the way, one of our sister companies also, besides selling that, also did to the same buyer down in Palm Beach, a very, very significant transaction. But, that's like a washing machine, right? You clean up money. If you come into this country, you buy a home for yourself for $88 million, you've taken it out of your home country, you parked it here, and what happens if the market, you sell it for 60? Terrible loss, but you've got 60 million sitting here that is available. So there are other reasons for that, but they're sensational prices. So I wouldn't, on some of the sensational, if you look at some of the buildings, yeah, they may be a little bit more heavily oriented, but not. And why is it that the foreign buyers don't make up enough? When we look at the component parts of the market, which we're about to, it's going to be self-evident why. So we have 1.6 on.